I know you're reversing right now, aren't you?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Just titrating up the food. You start to feel a bit healthier as the weeks go on, but the problem is, if you rely on your appetite, your natural hunger signaling, you'll just eat everything. That's the problem. I mean, yeah, carnivore diet does help you reach satiety quicker, and it's a better way to lose fat, in my opinion. Most people that diet down, if you're going from, say, 15, 16% body fat, like you just said, down to, say, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever your goal is, you're looking at quite a long-term event to get there. Not so much because it's a massive amount of weight on your body. You're not looking to lose like 60 pounds. You might be losing, I don't know, 15, 20 pounds, something like that. But if you can do it the right way, get lean, and somewhat sustain it, like sub 10% body fat, you got to do it in an incremental way. So you've got to know, okay, what levers have you pulled to get there? What are your sort of default macros? You'll find that changes all the time as well. So right now I should have gained like loads and loads of weight, but I haven't, because it just doesn't work out that way. It doesn't compute all the time. So your body's dynamic. So you got to have a way of tracking, for one. So it means every day, it doesn't have to be the same foods, but ideally at least try and keep the same sort of macro guidelines, plus or minus, maybe plus or minus 10 grams yourself. Sometimes I actually prefer people eating a bit more if their appetite is always in that week a bit higher. It might just be a temporary thing. Maybe the body's trying to heal up. They're stressed, they're tired, they've not slept that well, so signaling is a bit off. But then sometimes they can cut a bit harder, so it might be 10 grams less of whatever macronutrient it is. So I try to be a bit loose in that sense, because I'd rather someone eat an extra egg than be ravenous and not sleep, have to wait until 6 a.m. the next morning to eat their first meal. It's not a good position to be in, and until you're like 4% body fat or less, you shouldn't be feeling like that at all, if I'm honest. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear that, and I think that's the other thing that made me think, okay, I need to chat to Jonathan, was the fact that I know obviously on some of your videos on the members channel that I've watched, where you were talking about your prep and how you got down, and as you'll know, the majority of bodybuilders, the way that they hammer it is crazy. They'll just feel like death for 16, 20 weeks. And it didn't even sound like your expenditure was crazy high. And I know obviously that's for your personal reasons as well. But that's what really impressed me, was like, okay, like he's still got food and he's not going out and doing, a 12K hike every day either.
Yeah, quite literally. Honestly, my prep coach Marty Rice from South Coast Powerhouse. No discredit to him, but we're similar sort of stats, like height, weight, quite similar. Similar sort of bodies in some ways. We're both quite proportional. But he was dieting on, if we looked at calories, half as many as me, and he was also trying to hit. Don't quote me, but it's something like 10, 12,000 steps a day or something. And he had like daily walks and things, all sorts programmed into this thing. So I'm like, okay, but I know as a prep coach, he's working with athletes all the time. He runs a successful local gym to me. He's busy. He's probably not sleeping much at night. Mitochondria might be a bit downregulated, something like that. I don't know. But, it's a means to an end. The thing about bodybuilding is I keep saying to people, there's no hard rules. I might be able to eat double, and you, Jackson, might have to eat a quarter of what I eat. You wouldn't ever hope to get there, but if you have to achieve a goal, you might have to do something which is much more drastic. But on a carnivorous sort of way of eating, it's just not nearly as common. And I'm working with guys all the time. I'm working with a gentleman called Eric at the moment, and he's effectively on the same macros he was when we first started working together. So he's not eating any less food. His food choices are pretty much the same. He's got his body to a better state because we've utilised all these biohacks to upregulate the mitochondria, so his body can pump out more energy. He feels better, he feels fitter. That's translating to better recovery, so he can get more muscle over a period of time. So a lot of the time it's just getting rid of all the crap, the nonsense, the carbs, refining back what you're doing, tracking what you're doing, getting on a plan, then making the intervention, running the intervention for a week like a scientific experiment. Okay, what happens? Did it work? No. Okay, change it. But you only need to change one thing at a time, I find, in most cases. But then it gets more complicated the more complicated your goals get. If you're an MMA fighter and you're trying to build muscle at the same time, God help you. It's possible, but it's just going to be a lot of faff, and it's going to take you probably twice as long to get there because you're doing two things in one state, So, yeah.
I'm a fan of the singular goal approach as well. I think that's the best way to do it. One
Stretch from plan B. Yeah.
Exactly. Then you know if it worked or not. Yeah. And in terms of the food choices, you'll be pleased to know I basically do just eat a few things. I
Yeah,
like beef, I like eggs, and I like butter, and that's about it.
that works. That's
Yeah.
it. It works a treat. I mean, Vince Stronda used to do the same thing pretty much. Also, he added like a carb at the end of the week. But I speculate if he didn't do that and just become really fat adapted, I wonder if he would have been a better athlete. In
100%.
terms of conditioning, at least. I mean, he's never like dinged for conditioning, like being ripped. But I'd imagine that if he was in a low insulin state for longer throughout the week without the carb up, he'd have been diced out of his gourd. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, my other questions for you are like, so with your current sort of goals in mind, is it that you're like, what have you found effective so far? Because that's usually a good starting point to sort of construct a plan.
That is a great question. So there's been a couple of things that I've utilized. When I was in Spain earlier in the year, you put out something again on your, I believe it was on your paid members channel, and it was basically how to calculate your macros for a certain goal.
No.
And you clearly said, don't do this for longer than a couple of weeks. And I did it. Wow, man, it worked.
Yeah.
So on average, I was losing between 0.3 and 0.5 kilo a day body weight.
Wow.
And man, yeah, I was getting peeled so quick. But as you said, it wasn't that sustainable. Output was quite high. So I know that works. But then I also, again, from studying your channel and things that you've said, I've realized that I did feel better with higher fats, my protein. I'm not too fussed about, like, my recovery is always very good. At the moment, I'm training 4 days a week. And I'd rate my recovery on a scale of 10, probably like an 8.
That's good.
Yeah, it's only like hamstring DOMs that really sort of linger. The RDLs will do that, as you know.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm currently, I've just been titrating fat down, and I'm at about 180 now, 220 to 230 protein, other than leg day, where I'll have both quite a bit higher just because appetite's crazy. But that definitely has felt a lot better. When I've previously done this before discovering your channel, I'd normally be on like 140 fats, and I didn't feel bad, but I didn't feel incredible.
Yeah, there does seem to be that sort of fine limit of people where I notice myself, so I'll sometimes flip-flop a client's fat intake, and it might be that they reduce the fat from, say, 150 down to 130, and they're trashed. They're like, I feel quite hungry, sleep's quite bad. I'm like, how bad is it? Is it just a temporary thing, or is it something you can sort of deal with to get a bit leaner? And they usually sort of say, oh, well, let's carry on, because I'm the coach. They sort of, it's appeal to authority that let's just get on with it sort of thing. You're watching me, so but yeah, I have found that quite a few times myself. I'm the same. I mean, for me, the difference between 150 fat and 130 fat in a daily macro intake is quite drastic. I do notice there's a strong drop off in terms of like recovery levels. Fatigue picks up massively. I scaled up to 200 grams of fat now, which is fine. I'm eating like sirloin steaks every meal, oily fish, a bit of butter sometimes and stuff. But funny enough, it's not the most I've eaten as a carnivore, but I feel quite good eating this way. My digestion's good, and I'm noticing now my hydration status is a bit better. As you get very lean, you sort of lose body fat. You don't produce as much metabolic water. So when you break down fat, basically, you have a byproduct of extra water for your cells, which is deuterium depleted, which is more efficient to run on, basically. But the problem is that when you get too lean, you don't create as much, so you just pound back water, then you pound back salt. Then because you have more salt and more water, you start getting hungry and your taste buds go a bit all over the place. So that's when you get very lean. But if your goal is, say, to get 8% body fat, you won't get many hiccups along the way. It's just a case of titrating down, managing recovery carefully, knowing when to pull back a bit. You'll know when that happens because you'll notice consecutive nights you won't sleep as much. If you sleep 6 hours, you might sleep 4 hours for like 3 nights. Okay, or are you hungry when you wake up in the morning? Oh, ravenous. Okay. Then someone has a cup of coffee, adrenaline sort of stimulates. I know you like coffee, and I like coffee myself sometimes, so I don't knock you for that. But it gives you that adrenaline hit, which just impacts recovery again. There's always a downstream effect to these things, so it's trying to work out what you need to do and how you need to patch up any gaps in recovery as you get much leaner.